Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paradise Recreation and Park District Board of Directors regular meeting of May the 13th. Apologize for our technical difficulties. Will you all please just stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? What?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Before we proceed with the roll call tonight, I ask politely that everybody disengage your cell phones so they don't come on while we're commencing with the meeting this evening. Thank you for your cooperation. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director John Stonebreaker.
Here.
Director Robert Anderson.
Here.
Secretary Jolene Levy.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Steve Rodwick.
Here.
And Chairperson Alma Green.
Moving on our agenda, next item is welcome you all as our guests this evening. Please feel free to be recognized if you have any interest in any agenda items tonight. We'll give you that opportunity to speak on that. The next item tonight's agenda is what we call public comment. This is your opportunity as attendees of this meeting. If you have something that's not on tonight's agenda that you just want to bring to the attention of the board, this is your opportunity at this point in time to do so. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who wishes to share some public comment on a non-agenda item this evening? As I look around the room, I see no one wishes to exercise that option, so we'll move on to item 3 on tonight's agenda, which is referred to as the consent agenda. We have 3 items on consent agenda that we can act on concurrently if that's the wishes of the board. Is there anyone from the board or staff that wants the board to remove anything off a consent agenda this evening?
Mr. Chair, item 3.3.
3.3, okay. Anybody else?
I'd just like to make one minor correction to the minutes on 3.1.
In 3.1? Okay, so you want that discussed. Okay, we'll pull that then. Other than that, we have one left. I guess we'll just proceed with the one item that hasn't been pulled off consent agenda, which is item 3.2, the payment of the bills and disbursements of payments, check registers, and so forth. Does the board have any questions on that particular agenda item, consent item? If not, we need to entertain an action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item 3.2.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made. Do we have a second? Sounds like we do have a second. Thank you, Director Anderson. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on that motion, please?
Director John Stonebreaker.
Aye.
Director Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy.
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Rodwick.
Aye.
Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, first item pulled off for consent is item 3.1. Director Stonebreaker, you have a comment or a correction to the minutes?
Item 5.2 says that there are 4 ayes and then lists 5 directors who voted aye. Just would like the record to be corrected.
Okay, do you have that, Madam Clerk, that correction? Any other corrections need to be brought to our attention tonight? Hearing no further corrections, we need to entertain an action. What's the pleasure of the board? Need a motion to approve the minutes of item 3.1 as corrected.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as noted with the correction.
Okay, we have a motion made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Stonebreaker. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Director John Stonebreaker.
Aye.
Director Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy.
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Rodwick.
Aye.
Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 3.3, staff requested that be addressed individually. So staff, you want to lead the discussion on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have with us tonight representatives from Tierra Fuego and Butte County Fire Safe Council. Want to just pull this off to, first of all, recognize the great help that Butte Fire Safe Council has provided us and to the whole community. So that's been fantastic. They've been very easy partners for us to work with in complicated problems. So we very much have appreciated it. So tonight there's information in the packet, and then Brandy does have some information that we can share with you on updated, just to give a sense as to the project. But we have, if you look in your packet, page 11 has the 3 park properties: Noble Park, Koodalink, and Oak Creek Parks. So there's a little footprint on there, and that has been modified a bit based on field reconnaissance and then just working with us out in the field on different treatments out there to best serve the parks and the community on it. I think that's about all I wanted to say, but I just thought it'd be useful for board members to hear a little bit more about the project, and then also the benefits, how they've been working diligently for grant funds, and then, just been ready partners for us on a lot of these projects. We're very excited about this project in particular, because it has some interesting new twists to it that I think will further not only vegetation management, but also helps, I think, the community understand some of the benefits of not only fuels management, but some of the techniques we can use. And they're using a lot of different ones here. So I want to give them an opportunity to share with you. So how you guys wanted to arrange it, if you were doing it as a tag team or.
Yeah, we certainly welcome your input. Please come forward and engage that microphone, please, and then we're all ears.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Brandy Seifert. I'm a project manager with the Butte County Fire Safe Council, and we have secured funding to do projects at, like Dan said, Koodalink, Oak Creek, and Noble Park, and we would like to partner with Terra Fuego and the Prescribed Burn Association in order to carry out fuels reduction and broadcast burns at your properties. The purpose of these is to help restore, after the campfire had kind of gone through and devastated some of these areas, to help restore them, manage the vegetation, and get them site prepped, ready for you guys to be able to have safe access to your parks again. So I've provided Dan with new updated maps from what was in your original agenda. Some of the boundaries have expanded so that we can do more work for you guys. So Dan just passed those out. We'll be going in through Oak Park and Koodalink with Terra Fuego to do fuels reduction and manage the ceanothus and manzanita and prep those areas for broadcast burn. And then Noble Park, we have the hope to work with you guys to kind of manage a schedule of maintenance as far as mowing so that we can get the grass length that we need for a spring burn with the Prescribed Burn Association. So definitely welcome any questions you guys may have about the project.
I have one question, if I may. Have you seen the staff report that's generated by staff on this agenda item?
I have not.
You have not. Have any of the other attendees seen the staff report? Staff, did you not send them a staff report on this agenda item?
It was in the packet. We didn't send it to them before.
Oh, it's in the
was
packet.
available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I ask is
Are there particular
obviously,
questions, Mr. Chair? that
well, I
you-
just want to know if they're in concurrence with what's recommended. Obviously, you are. You have an interest in your
Oh,
this evening.
yeah, I could probably address that. So
Okay.
the staff report basically outlines the project based on a lot of information that Brandy and team provided. But the request from the staff here is to authorize district manager to complete the agreements with the contractor. And that's just got a version of it, of some of the materials today, but it's basically for us, and we've done this before where we have work that's being covered by a grant. We require the same insurance, the same sort of obligation as if they're working directly with us. And so Brandy and team provides some of that material today on what their subcontractors would get. And it looks compliant with our insurance requirements and so forth. But that would be reviewed too by our attorney.
And May I ask, these activities will occur over not one fiscal year, but several, is that correct?
So the objective right now is to take care of the fuels reduction part this coming months and then do the broadcast burn this fall and the following spring next year.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board on this agenda item?
I have many. So I'm slightly displeased that I'm seeing this revised map only now, having already taken my field trip. So my first question is, when was the amendment to SNC 1547 first brought to the attention of our district?
This was brought to your attention. Dan and I spoke about it last year when it was decided that the original plan for broadcast burn at Koodalink Park was no longer sufficient due to the material not being able to carry a broadcast burn like originally planned.
Uh-huh. That's not quite exactly my question, but the other question is so we know that in June of 2023, the district report said that Butte County Fire Safe Council had informed PRPD staff that SNC 1547 had been approved. And the question is, how far back had that been discussed without that being brought to the attention of the general public? How long has this been in the works?
I believe that the grant was, the application was in 2021, but it wasn't approved until 2022.
That seems not consistent with what I looked up. So the notice of exemption, maybe Taylor has some information. Notice of exemption was dated December of 2022.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. This grant specifically, these processes typically take a lot of time in terms of developing these applications, working with the landowners, and then once we submit the application, we don't typically announce to the public until we actually receive the award because we want to set expectations appropriately. So once we receive that award, then the announcement is made by SNC to the public. We typically release a press release to announce to the public. But then there's many steps that go into preparing those projects. As you can see today, there's iterations as we kind of conduct these site visits, develop the scope of work to make sure that we're meeting the ecological objectives as well as community protection and public access to these, especially these locations within the town and Magalia. So many different steps that take many years to get to this point. So it kind of gives a little bit of a timeline and background on public announcements.
Okay, so my colleagues who might have been here longer than I have, was staff given direction to add Noble Park and Oak Creek Park to this project, or was that staff's own initiative?
I can share some information there. As Taylor mentioned, a lot of these projects, they're opportunities for us. So when they're doing the sequence, especially a project like this, typically you might have, let's say for a timber harvest on Forest Service land or even state land, there'd be a process. They would have the identified project. This is a programmatic approach. So it's looking at certain number of acres within their defined area. And the CEQA, for example, is looking at a number of different treatments with the prescription being tied in with the field work. And then also this is very expensive to do pre-project. So the project funding pays for that project work. We've had several conversations over the last probably 3 months, 4 months or so that focus on this, with even including a field visit, in which case it's very dynamic. I would not want to base any project based on 2022 or 2021. And when you started the project, so different on the ground. And we've had a lot of different projects and work occur on our properties in that meantime. So this is kind of more of an updated view of what management can go on there. And I would say that Fire Safe Council and their team they brought on been very responsive to concerns we may have. It's not just fuels for us, because these are park experiences, habitat. We want to maintain certain tree spacing, not too dense, but we want to have some clusters for wildlife, some privacy screens, that type of thing. And so we've been very successful in being able to work with them out in the field and identifying those locations where there may be good ponderosa pine regeneration. We may want to shift the succession towards oaks, reduce the fuels that may be associated with brush and deaden down wood and clean those areas up. And so I think on the ground view of things, and this is where the refinement goes, be happy to share with you out in the field what it looks like, because I think that's kind of a telling feature. And I think when you look at Brandy's map here, it shows that refinement. The first pass through is more general. And then as we get to better and better understanding the site and current conditions, then we could look at different tools to apply across that landscape. And, you know, I don't have a copy of your map here, but it looks like it's far more refined than what I even saw it in the field a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So
I was on the ground at all 3 sites this afternoon. So I have an understanding of how significantly the Kootenai Park property has changed over the last several years. The way that we have a typical early seral progression. And my opinion is that it's very educational the way it stands right now to show what a disturbed forest looks like at this stage of its regeneration. And I don't know if another previous board had given direction at a different time in the regeneration to modify the vegetation in this manner. But okay. So I'll pause and let my colleagues have a word.
Any other questions from board members? Now, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the primary premise of this whole thing is to minimize the fuels on these properties and help us maintain those properties for our long-term planning purposes.
I would say there's some secondary objectives as well. You know, some of it has to do with being able to allow access. We are building trails out on site. I would disagree with the idea it's an early seral stage, because we have regeneration on the site from the previous vegetation that was there. So it's not a pioneering site. And we want to encourage the oak regeneration that we're occurring on site. We have done, I think, a pretty good job on the upper area there, defining the trees, reducing it down from, you know, dozens and dozens of root sprouts to, in some cases, 4 to 5, and now we're going down to 2 or 3. And that's part of this as well, is to encourage, go back through, pick the leader on that, get those trees, which would be in a physiognomy wise, a early shrub state, into real trees. And so that will contribute to better microclimate, more shade, no leaves certain times of the year. So the fuels are on the ground decaying. So I think that's kind of an objective of the site. It's not just fuels reduction, but it's setting us up for long-term management that makes it a lot easier for our crew to contend with.
Thank you for that clarification. I was aware of that too, but I wanted to hear that for the record, just so that everybody's heard it. Thank you.
I do have one question. It's probably only directed to staff. With regard to Noble Park, was the recent acquisition added too late to be included in this park planning process, or was it just deemed unnecessary? Because it seems like it's the most clustered piece of parcel there is in Noble.
Yeah, it's a complex site. You know, I think part of the objectives on this is education as well. And so the one parcel that the project footprint is on is pretty easy to do work. You know, that's where we've done a lot of the work. And I don't know if you guys have a different perspective on, you know, I think we excluded that area right now just from the complexity standpoint, Director Roderick. So.
Yeah, so I can explain a little bit more about the purpose behind Noble Park. It was to be bringing in fire into the town of Paradise is kind of a big task, and to get a lot of people on board with it, we thought we would use that site as kind of a simpler site, bring in the Prescribed Burn Association to bring in volunteers from the community, use it as an educational piece instead of a fuels reduction project, so that we can get more people kind of on the side of good fire being beneficial for the community. So it's an educational piece more as it is a fuels reduction site.
So, since the acquisition, I'll add this, there was a tremendous amount of black locusts on that site. Very heavy fuels, very unpleasant to be around because of the thorns. And so we've had quite a bit of that cleaned up since then and dropped on the ground, but there's still a fair amount of fuels on there. And I think it's going to ideally be, we'd like to work with the Fire Safe Council and others to nibble away at that area. But, in either case, the work on the rest of the property kind of creates a better buffer around that. So I think it kind of helps isolate it a bit more.
And wasn't our potential Noble Park property at one time, we used that as a demo for biochar activities as
Yeah.
well. So that reinforces what you're planning to do with it, is to educate the public about fire in general, that type of thing.
And I should make a distinction because, if board members recall, that parcel kind of brackets the bottom end of our first acquisition there, and then goes to the wetland. And the bottom part has actually been kind of the center for a lot of the good fire events. It's kind of more contiguous with it. It's the complexity gets when you get closer to the woodland, and it gets a little more topography and a lot more fuel issues there. So I would say roughly maybe a third to half of it is probably within this overall footprint, and kind of a easier management problem than by the wetland.
Board members have any other questions for the parties before us this evening on this agenda item?
WLPZ buffer zone.
WLPZ stands for Water Lake Protection Zones. We have our CEQA compliance makes us sorry. It's where we have equipment limitation zones so that we don't go against any of our compliance.
The old map or the new map don't show the grazing that's going on at Oak Creek.
Is that not on that map? It's the same footprint. I just might have missed putting that on that layer because they're two.
Accurate. Showing grazing
I wonder if it's
on the east side of the creek.
The footprint doesn't change. It just might miss the grazing as one of the layers because they're two different contractors. So what I gave you is the Terra Fuego contract maps to show the fuels reduction side.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think it's probably a layering challenge, because I think that if you show the grazing, it is underneath it all. It's the entire border of it. Maybe, I don't know if we had any exclusion areas. I don't think we had anything.
There was a small 25-foot buffer around a Humboldt lily that we're protecting, but other than that, there's, which is on that map there. But the grazing footprint is the same. It's just when you have multiple contractors on the same site and you have to start adding all of those layers, it starts to get pretty confusing. So I decided to keep it a little simpler.
Any other questions or discussion?
I just want to take issue with the last sentence in the staff report. I'm not convinced that this work will allow district staff to more economically manage these areas in the future. I think that for the Kootalink property especially, the most important thing is reestablishing a shade canopy to suppress the brush, and repeatedly cutting things back is going to lead to additional expenses in the long run. That's what we've seen on a lot of work in Magalia, whether that's done by Fire Safe Council or done by individuals or in the fire scar, that the areas that have high leaf area index and a lot of shade canopy are not overgrown in the same way that I chose to go across Kootalink Road to access the property today, and was able to see all of the variations in the individual properties along both Kootalink and Kootalink Road. And my other comment before I turn off my microphone is that since this says authorize the district manager to complete the agreements, do you expect this to be a single motion, or can they be made separate motions?
It's a prerogative of the board and the chair on how it's structured. I suspect that I don't know how the contract is set up from your guys' side of things, but it's probably easiest logistically for us to have a single agreement for us to manage, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that what we're asking is the approval to sign the landowner agreement form, not the contract that between Terra Fuego and the Fire Safe Council. So it's just you guys allowing us the permission to do the work.
That was my understanding too, so thank you for that. Okay, we're going to bring this back to the board, and thank you for your input, Taylor.
Thank you.
This will bring this back to the board. We've had a interesting discussion on this to a certain extent, and I need to ask the board what is your desire? You have a recommendation before you to authorize the district manager to complete agreements with the contractor.
I move to authorize the district manager to complete the agreements for the Oak Creek property and the Noble Park property. And
Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion dies for lack of second then. Does anybody else wish to make a motion on this agenda item?
Mr. Chair, I authorize the district manager to complete the agreements with the contractor as stated in the staff report.
That pertains to all three sites.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded to approve this agenda item as recommended by staff. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director John Stonebreaker,
nay.
Director Robert Anderson,
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Roderick,
Aye.
Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 4 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your input on this. We'll move on to next agenda item, which is committee reports. Item 4.1, the Finance Committee met on April the 16th. Mr. Chair of the committee, you have anything you want to share with the board tonight other than just the written staff report?
No, I believe the written report covers it adequately, and I don't want to say too much because these items are likely to come before the full board in the future.
I concur with that. Thank you so much. So that all board members have received a written copy of the Finance Committee's report. The Rec and Park Committee met on April the 21st. I'm the chair of that committee. I also think that what you have in that written report does cover everything that we discussed that particular afternoon. Do you concur with that, Robert?
Concur.
Okay, so unless other board members have a question on that, I think just accept it as is, as presented, and we'll move on then. So we're ready to take on item 5, old business. Development of qualified construction contractors. Staff, you want to lead that discussion?
Yeah, I'll give, as Christy comes up, a little bit of background on this. So as board and public knows, we have a number of upcoming projects that are vitally important to the district and our citizens. And one thing that will help us, I think we've discussed this a little bit before, but the idea of having a pre-qualifications process. And so what that does for us, even though it's a little bit of upfront time, it does allow us to get a robust list, hopefully, of contractors that are well qualified, that have insurance, have the required payroll obligations for prevailing wage, and get all of those kind of boxes checked. So we don't have to sort through a bid package where it may be the lowest bid, but they're not qualified to do the work. And so it just kind of streamlines that process. And we've been very fortunate that Christy's been diving into this for the last year and a half or so on this. And so we have very happy to bring to you today this list, which will allow us a 1-year window in which we can use this pre-qualified contractors can then put in bids for upcoming construction project at Billy Park, Lake Ridge, our shop property, and other ones that might be coming up. I will also point out that we have a couple of other items that will be more specialty oriented that will probably be a separate process for us to go through. But this gets kind of a general contractors list for us. And it's very much like our short list. We were authorized, I believe, last year, a short list for various professional services. So 2023. Okay. And I'll kick it over to Christy to fill in some of the gaps that I missed.
No, I think actually the district manager covered it very well. Really, the goal is to make sure that the people who are bidding on our upcoming development projects are well qualified to do the work. So we don't want to discourage anyone that's, a reputable, licensed contractor to bid on the work. We want to encourage as many as possible. But I think doing the pre-vetting up front to make sure that these folks are well, in fact, qualified saves us time in the end and prevents us from having to go back and put the request for bids back out if something were to be found out after the fact, somebody's just the lowest bidder, but they don't have the right licensing for it. So this just kind of is helping to dot I's and cross T's before we get to that part, because we want to make sure everything is really expeditious. Once we get to that point, we are ready to go.
So thank you, Christy. Do you and the staff have any types of contractors that you have in mind that you want to try to submit their and be subject to vetting?
We're going to post it in a publicly circulated newspaper. We'll make it available on Valley Contractors Exchange and other like exchanges. I think likely it's probably cost beneficial to have somebody more local, but we're certainly not going to exclude people that are from out of the area. There is, if we're able to kind of, and I'm not sure that this is possible, but if there is some kind of point system that, helps somebody that's more local, that is probably going to be more cost effective for us, but not necessarily. So again, we don't want to exclude anyone. And it's really, with all the escalatory costs since these grants were awarded, we really have to be careful with how much we're spending. So, so we don't want to keep anybody from participating. I personally don't have any particular contractors in mind. I think if I did, it would be inappropriate to say so because I want them to be able to bid and I don't want to demonstrate preference. I actually am not familiar with most of the contractors. So,
okay.
I think just in general, we're looking at a general contract that can cover these types of projects and work and demonstrate ability to do that. And then having, I think importantly, a public works component, because that is a whole other complexity for organizations that often may bid on it, but they don't have the payroll set up for it. I will add this one thing: when I was in a municipal service, one criterion that you can add is ability to mobilize. So they may not have their headquarters in, our area, but they need to be able to mobilize, for example, we would often have a 2-hour period. So that would typically allow, if someone needed to come up here for vandalism on the site, there was some sort of a site emergency that they needed to take care of, that they weren't commuting up from the Bay Area or the coast. So that allows a company that may be doing work in our area, that may have a local office, but their corporate office may be elsewhere. We just wanted to have a little bit closer radius so we can have, I think more responsive work. And there's ways to do that for our pre-qualification process.
The responsiveness could become pretty important if we want to go, as much through winter months as possible. If we have a dry section of season, that we're able to get back in and do some more work while not having to replace all of the wattles or whatever, earth holding measures are put in place. I don't know if that's the right term, earth holding. You guys would probably know.
But this would be open more than just general contractors. We're talking arborists, electricians.
No,
No?
No, thank you for asking that. No, this would just be for contractors that are looking to bid on the specific projects that we have named.
Okay.
And so that is, then they're able to bid for a year. So while, you
Okay.
know, some projects might go before others. If within that year we go out to bid with them, then those people that were pre-qualified can try for these different things. It also provides some advantage then too. I think if they see the scope of work that is potentially available, that they might be more likely to bid on I don't know, they could reduce mobilization costs, for example, and then they might bid the project a little bit lower if they think they might be able to get more than one. So obviously no guarantees, but I mean, it's kind of another potential win pile for this method. The method you described was the short list. So that's where we had the landscape architects, civil engineers, and surveyors. And I think we are going to go back and do a second round for that type of short list for electricians, plumbers, and that sort of thing. But at this time, I believe it's just the three main categories that had historically been shortlisted.
Director Roderick, I think you bring up a good point, and I think Director McGrean was getting to this too. The type of contractor or vendor that could be on here, it could be anything from a construction management person that then has subs doing electrical and concrete work and so forth, plumbing. But I think that the importance is that we would list out what would be required, the disciplines on there. And some firms have it all in house, and they would just put in their package. But if it I guess allows those contractors to have those conversations, seeing what work is coming down the road, and then establish it rather than we have a few weeks to respond to a bid and they're slapping together a team on it. So I think a lot of them do have connections with folks that have specialty from their standpoint, specialty work, but it allows them to put together a team in a more thoughtful way.
So on behalf of the board, I got to ask this question of staff. If we were to approve this agenda item tonight, enlighten me, what time period are you looking at in order to go out and run this process to the point where you solicit and hopefully vet and then come up with a list of, of contractors of various types, and based on that timeline, then the end result is something that doesn't have to come to the board for adoption, does it? It does.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Oh,
what
the list would.
The list.
So it'd be much like our short list process where we had kind of a call for qualifications.
Right.
And then that would have to be approved absolutely by the board.
That's,
So that,
just wanted to clarify that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
But you're envisioning, if we give you the green light tonight, going ahead with this and over a relatively intermediate to short period of time, you will hopefully have a list that you can then put on one of our future board meetings, which plays nicely because later tonight, we're being asked to set aside potentially some special board meeting dates. So hopefully that will complement this process. Am I
Yes.
correct on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board members on this?
I forgive you for mentioning Valley Contractors Exchange. You might want to try Carpenters Union.
Okay, Carpenters Union. Noted. Thank you.
So thank you, Christy. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak to this agenda item? Seeing and hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Does the board have any further discussion on this, or do you want to just entertain an action? Well, judging by the silence, then we need to consider an action on this agenda item. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the district manager to develop a list for board of directors consideration for pre-qualified contractors for upcoming projects.
We have a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made to authorize the district manager to develop a list of board of director consideration for pre-qualified contractors for upcoming projects. That motion's been seconded. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Robert Anderson,
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on, new business items. Item 6.1, approve the fiscal year 2026-2027 preliminary budget and set a public hearing date related thereto. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 15 has the notice of public hearing. That would be signed and posted upon board approval tonight. This is kind of a routine action for us to kind of set up for our hearing that will occur with board concurrence on June 10th, Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. And that would be coincident with our meeting date, which is meeting time, which I believe is 10 a.m. that day, right? Yep. So, and that's actually on the second page of the agenda, by the way. So make a note of that. That was set previously by the board with our calendar. Be happy to answer any questions. This is kind of a very broad brush picture that's intended to give the public a snapshot where we're at and where we are, what our budget obligations might be looking like. We will speak later on here or some other materials related to it. I think that helps. One is our preliminary budget, which is on the second page. If you'll notice, there's a resolution, a placeholder for the resolution number, which would be set at the next meeting, and then kind of a draft also of a little bit more detail on our projected fund balances. Later on in the meeting, Catherine is prepared to give a little update on our budget status with this fiscal year. But we recommend that the board approves this preliminary budget and set the meeting date for June 10th, 2026.
If I may, just for the record, staff, you ran this by the Finance Committee. And it's my understanding we've looked at this not on one occasion, but actually two different times. And emphasis is made here that this is a preliminary budget. It's not the final budget. There is a possibility, if we do take this action tonight and set it for public hearing, there may be some more tweaking on the budget between now and the hearing date. So just keep that in mind. And particularly as it relates to the narrative that's in this packet, there may be some further changes perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I forgot to mention that. So we also have attached here as our narrative that's not required, but I think it's been very helpful for us to demonstrate to the public and educate people how our budget goes. We've already received some comments on this, including from some directors tonight on it. So there are changes that are in the works on it that will be finalized, incorporated into it. There are several errors that we caught after this went out related to dates and some other things that we kind of cleaned up that language. We absolutely encourage directors to review it, ask questions, because that allows us to kind of hone the message, make sure people understand our budget. The board has kind of this broad view of things, but we can dive down to quite a bit of detail, and we've done some of that at the committee level, but we definitely welcome any suggestions, improvements on the narrative, and consider it a draft, an early draft. Even though the budget has gone through several cycles of review and changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So before I open it to the floor, do any board members have anything to add to this discussion on this particular agenda item or questions there too?
I just want to run a general question by the finance members of the Finance Committee. What's your confidence level in the I guess projected accuracy with regard to this preliminary budget? I mean, is it
Very well.
You feel it's too optimistic, too pessimistic, just to get a feel?
I find it very unrealistic. So for 4 consecutive fiscal years, staff has anticipated far more grant income than actually came in. And I have minimal confidence that $2.5 million in non-capital grant income will pay for all of the anticipated expenses.
Noted.
And in relation to your question, Director Roderick, I don't share the same viewpoint as my colleague on the committee for the simple reason being that as it relates to that particular line item, we're talking about grants. The nature of grants, oftentimes the timing of grants and the receiving and the awarding of them, and so forth, oftentimes don't reflect directly what a fiscal year is shown preliminarily.
Yeah, I understand if
And
you,
with that in mind, quite frankly, the last multiple years, every budget we've adopted and we've run with, we have not had to use our reserves to any great extent. And I have a lot of confidence in that, based on that track record, that we will probably experience that again. Not only that, as your chair, we will probably bring back to this board, if we ultimately adopt this fiscal year budget in June, we will come approximately halfway through that fiscal year and we will do any necessary adjustments as needed to that budget. That's my expectation on behalf of the board. That's our responsibility as stewards too. So just so you know.
okay.
Mr.
Well, and I do understand that if you do not receive the anticipated grant, you largely don't incur the expenses associated with that grant as well. So that makes sense.
And I will say that a couple of things, if I may, that we would actually be exceeding that dollar amount if we had the Butte County, or excuse me, Butte Creek Canyon acquisition. Actually, the check went through our grant income rather than we signed it over at escrow. So it's $1.4 million that you could add to that amount if we did a cost reimbursement on it. It's correct.
But it's not operations. That's what I'm discussing. So certainly there's capital grants, but there's also in the operations budget, there's the $2.5 million that I was commenting about.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too diving into the weeds on, because there are certain ways. Actually, we're obligated to show all of our revenue. And so all of our revenue can't be used for all things. Impact fees are a great example because it is restricted, but we have to show it on our books. So anyway, I think that's something we could dive into at committee level, or if
Yes, please.
committee members have questions on. But I think that the grant income, we either have an average, which right now with the number of grants that we have, average over the next 4 or 5 years would be $2.9 million average per year. Now that's probably not accurate at the front end, and it's probably under at the end of it. So I think Mr. McGreehan's suggestion on a mid-year review, which we do a mid-year review, but adjustment at that point probably gives us a realistic balancing of that information and expectations.
Yeah, and just one more question. I've only seen the printed copy of the preliminary draft, the numbers page. Is the font darker online?
Yeah, I'm not sure why the print, maybe I think this image looks small, so I think that might be part of
Okay.
it too. But yeah, we'll check that. It does seem very faint on here, so I don't know if it's a printing artifact or what. Yeah. We'll take a look at it, see if we can, maybe it is a artifact of it being in color, maybe different when it goes to a black and white, but I guess this is in color, so we'll check on it.
Any further discussion at the board level? Hearing no further discussion, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this agenda item? Judging by the silence, apparently not. Okay. We have a recommendation before us this evening, board members. The recommendation is to approve the preliminary budget and set a public hearing date for June the 10th, 2026, to conduct a public hearing and entertain the adoption of hopefully a final budget for the coming fiscal year. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we approve the preliminary budget and set a public hearing date for June 10th, 2026.
Okay, we have a motion that's made. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Before we have a vote, can we just clarify that this will be on the Finance Committee agenda for this month? Thank you.
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Robert Anderson,
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Roderick,
Aye.
Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on, under new business, item 6.2. This is a item to consider the setting of potential, not guarantee that they'll occur, but just potential future special meeting options. Board members, you've all received a written staff report on this agenda item. This is something, as your chair, I and our district manager think is worth our while to discuss and take action on today, this evening. Hopefully, you've checked your individual calendars and you're willing to share with the rest of your fellow board members which of these dates you can accommodate if necessary, and preferred times. So we'll start with Director Anderson. You've seen the staff dates and times on this staff report. Do you have any problems with your scheduling?
Page 51.
51.
No, I don't.
Director Roderick.
I'm clear on all dates.
Wow. Okay. Director Levy.
I think I'm clear on all of them except the 2 June dates. Yeah. They might be a problem.
Director Stonebreaker.
I would prefer to have the meeting on the afternoon of the third Wednesday, if possible. That is the least stressful with my other obligations. The July 22nd should also be okay. But essentially for every month, the earlier date works better for me than the later date because of my
Okay.
other obligations.
Every month, the earlier
Yeah,
date?
because I tend to have 4 conflicts on the fourth Thursday. September 30th probably won't be a problem regardless, but for the months that would be 6/24, 7/29, all of that, I'm frequently recovering from a trip to the supervisors the day before and preparing for multiple meetings the day after. That doesn't preclude me from being here. It's just that my performance and my duties here would be somewhat impaired if it was when I was already overstressed that week. So again, when possible, the early, if we were to set dates tonight, the earlier date is the better date for me.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. All right. Again, if we adopt these, they're not locked in necessarily unless they're needed. And if we have a quorum, we can still proceed and potentially conduct a meeting occasionally. The whole idea is this would not be like an agenda that you find in a regular meeting. This would just be something, it might be a single item or something like that is really dependent upon some timeliness. So this is the thought process behind this.
I understand that if something were to come up, then rather than have to get everyone on the same page on a short time frame, that we can sort of circle that date so that our schedules don't fill up and that meeting time will be available. So again, that's why I would prefer the earlier date of each month, if that works for my colleague.
Very good. Okay. So that would be my expectation as your chair, that staff would do that. In other words, as you would know as the work commences that there's something that's time dependent, and you would immediately make that known to us board members. So,
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just offer one other thing, is that some of this too, I think is to, some of these meetings could be very loaded up with some of the things that are stacked up. So it may be a workload, not just timely, but a workload issue to help us spread it out. But we'd want to, pick dates that, pre-approved, people can circle the calendar, and we have as many directors as possible.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you characterize it very well, I think, on that.
Okay. Well, we need to we need to entertain an action on this. The recommendation is to authorize the board clerk to utilize all these listed special meeting dates and times, but that motion could also include to the to the clerk that she takes into account the commentary that each board member's made this evening on this agenda item as best she can. That makes sense.
Yeah, just to clarify, I wanted to make sure we're looking for one alternative per month. So I think if there's a desire for the board to cross out some of those that just aren't, viable, either quorum wise or majority of the or, most members, that we could accommodate that and just, kind of have that listing. We could, with the motion, authorize it with the identified list, not the entire adoption of the list, if that makes sense.
Well, it seems the only conflicts that we'd have is with Jolene possibly in June. And then John suggested the earliest date. So that was the third Wednesday of every month. We
Yeah.
can just maybe agree to the first Wednesday of every month and then do them in the afternoon. Because all of them have an afternoon option. So the first Wednesday in the afternoon for every one of those months seems like the easiest motion and
that's-
agreeance.
That's ideal for me, unless if one of these three slots for June works best for Director Levy, then.
And let me just ask as a clarification, I'm anticipating that these potential special meetings are as it says, a timing thing, a time crunch thing, and they aren't generally controversial issues. They're just, let's get this done so we can sign the papers kind of thing.
Never can tell what's controversial.
Understood.
So I think, look, we have public notice on the meeting. So the idea was that we would be agendized, it would get the word out. I think this allows us on our special meetings to have more reduced Brown Act requirements on it, but we've been trying to get this out 5 to 7 days beforehand.
Mhm.
So we would continue that. These would not be emergency meetings, which you can have, 24 hours or 48 hours if it's a special meeting. So we want to get that out. It's kind of like abide by our regular rules, and get that notice out. And, you never can tell what might be controversial, but we would allow kind of a vigorous public process and having it out there. It allows us a lot more. We can reserve the room. We can have it all
Right.
squared away. And
Right.
I suspect in reality, when we go through it, I imagine we may use 1 to 3 of these dates, maybe. So it may be, or none at all, but it at least gives us some options on there. And I think we would probably have a pretty good idea as to, this meeting date. Obviously that's about a week before that third Wednesday. We could let board members know before that and probably even telegraph it a little bit more, beforehand. So we might say, hey, we're not going to have meetings in August or that type of thing. So
Okay.
I just want us to have dates that we have the room reserved. We're reasonably assured of board members being able to attend, and we can move forward rather than playing telephone on
Okay.
the dates.
And my potential is my daughter's having a baby. She's due June 18th, so I just won't know for those 2 dates until she
Yeah.
comes earlier, goes, so we can plan them, I guess.
Sure. Okay.
And just one request, if we can ask the board clerk to send this out via our calendar as optional meetings or potential meetings. So
I'll put hold and then it'll say special meeting.
Got
So
it.
you hold it for a special meeting.
Very good. Okay.
thank you.
At this point in time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this agenda item? Judging from the silence, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm going to take a shot at this to see if I can get some support. I'm June 17th in the afternoon, the month of July 22nd in the afternoon, the month of August, August 18, August 19 rather, in the afternoon, as well as September 16th in the afternoon and October 21st.
Second.
Yeah, 1 second. Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Robert Anderson,
Aye.
Secretary Jolene Levy,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Steve Roderick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Alma Green.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk, very much. So we're going to move on. Next item on our agenda is our district report. Staff, you want to take the lead on that, please? We have a written copy, but you can also verbalize a few things.
Yeah, and I'll be exceedingly brief on this. We do have our closed session guest is available to us now, so we'll kind of
Wow.
expedite this walking through the report. One thing I wanted to do is provide. We've been trying to give a little bit of spotlight on different parts of the organization. Certainly, the next month or so, we'll be talking about budget stuff quite a bit. But I asked Catherine to give us a little rundown on some observations. Some of this she gave at the Finance Committee, but to give us a little bit of high-level view of some budget items first.
Hello. Okay, so on page 64 is the profit and loss budget versus actual. And I just wanted to point out a couple things that I think are important to notice. In our revenue income section, you'll notice that out of all of them, our percentage is 98.8% of what we budgeted. So honestly, I think this is one of the first time that I've ever seen it that close to what we've budgeted. So we're doing pretty good for our income. And then if you look on the next page at the overall expense, the percentage of that is 61.9% of what we budgeted for our expenses. And we're already over 3/4 of the way through our fiscal year. And we just went over our 50% mark for expenses. So I think we're doing really well. Some key things in here, legal or not legal, accounting is well over budget. And that is because when we did the budget, we were not planning on needing to hire forensic accountants for our insurance investigation or not investigation, but claims. So what's going on is that they are helping us provide financial information to our insurance adjusters to settle the campfire claims. So that was an expense we weren't expecting, and that's why it's well over budget, is
May I ask
because
a
we have
que-
to pay for them first, and then the insurance company will
Can
pay
I ask you a
for
question on that very subject? In this month's check register,
Mm-hmm.
there was a check to
Stout. Yes,
that
that
outfit
is
called Stout. So that was not anticipated for this current fiscal year.
No.
So what they're doing is helping our insurance provider.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as other key things to note, everything is pretty much really nice that it's well under budget. As far as expenses go, in the income section, you'll notice that yes, grant income is not it's halfway, which is good because that is something that we really want. I know that we all want it, and they're providing as fast as they can, it seems. So that is nice to have. Was there any questions on any particular item?
I just want to commend you personally on behalf of the board that you've been doing an admirable job, and thank you for cracking the whip on the rest of the staff.
I do at all staff meetings, I do have to mention stop spending money. So I do try. Another note I wanted to make is that we are still working on the audit for the 23-24 fiscal year. I have submitted the remaining requests that they had made. I had submitted them yesterday or the day before. And when asked how long it would take them to get us a draft, they had said it would take, once all the items were submitted, they would take about 2 weeks in order to get us a draft copy. So as long as they don't have any more questions or any more items that they need pulled, I'm hoping about 2 weeks we should have a draft for this one.
You and I both hope. You already know where I'm on this. I'm not happy with that auditing process, but there's not much we can do about it at this point in time. Okay. Thank you, Catherine. Board on this.
Just on that note, we expect to see the auditor speak to the finance committee.
I can try and get them to do a virtual, but
Right.
I don't think they'll be in.
No, online is what I expected as well.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, just in case we have any comments on the draft audit that we would like to see addressed by the auditor herself. Thank you.
Yeah, I can work
Yeah,
that out.
and just so you know, typically what happens, we'll get the draft, we'll sometimes run that through the committee, assemble the questions so that they can definitively answer it, afterward.
Right.
That's
But-
been kind of a typical process for us. And then if there's, substantial things that they need to discuss, or may be able to explain way better than our staff can, then they can walk through it,
Right.
at finance committee.
Yeah, but last time around, we didn't have the opportunity to speak directly with Harshwall that we received the draft much belatedly. And, if it turns out that there are things that we would like to see addressed before it comes to the full board, I'd like to be able to ask the auditor herself, why is this way? That's all. So happy to have that conversation at the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of other things. You see probably a thinness from our rec staff. We have thank you, Catherine, by the way. If you look at that, it's one paragraph, but there's a lot of stuff in there on April events and a lot of good photographs, anything from our kids fishing day, which was cold and wet and seems a long time ago, but it was just last month. But a pretty good turnout and amazing volunteers that day. There's also a lot of good information about the Gold Nugget Craft Fair and other events that we had. Our crew is now kicking off from those events of the events of April into camps and programs now, and definitely in the thick of hiring seasonal staff. And I do have a bit of positive news on our pool refinishing project. It's on track. It looks like it might be ahead of schedule, and we're still targeting our regular opening date. So that looks very promising to kind of continue that. I'd be happy to talk about some of the details there. If you go down Recreation Drive, there's a lot of activity going on with the building foundation is being poured, and some of the work there. I have to say I'm impressed with the contractor and the attention to detail and the how hard their crew's working out there. They're working really, really well. Both contractors actually are. Mark, I'm going to kick it over to you here in a second to talk about some park projects. There's a really great list, I think, from the volunteer program. And then I think a number of items. Well, let's let Mark come up here. Mark, you want to share with us a little parks report?
No, not these ones. Yeah, I might have when I was a younger man. Anyways, hello. It's good to see you all. Thank you for being here. Paul's always here. He's one of our members of our staff, our maintenance staff, and I appreciate that. It's good to have a friendly face behind me. Anyway, I wanted to go really quickly because I wanted to talk about the one thing I'm passionate about, and that's Billy Park. But the Paradise Lake, I don't know if the deck got taken out. It was approximately a year and a half ago. A vehicle got stolen. And I think they were trying to do burnouts, and they hit our deck and took it out. And then, unfortunately, we're about halfway through the rebuilding of it. Our carpenter retired, so we were kind of left in limbo for quite a long time. And luckily, Dan got a hold of, or I don't know how it came about, but the Valley Construction Workforce Foundation, and it was right in their scope of work, and it worked out in the carpenter, the contractor that they have on board, Bill Norton, they did an incredible job. I don't know if anyone's been up there to actually look at it, but it's beautiful. It's 100 times better than the deck that was there. So we were lucky that that came about, and I appreciate that because I was stressing on how I was going to get this thing built, because in that time other jobs had come upon us, so it was like trying to fit that in when that was already in the backlog. So that really worked out, and I appreciate that because he did an incredible job. And it's always like anything when you don't know somebody and he's really, you're just going, okay, I hope this guy's good, and he really was. They did an incredible job. Um, Defensible space. Yes,
Yeah, I was just going to add something to that is, so the idea that labor was essentially donated to us except for the lead contractor, but it was a training opportunity. So they had an opportunity for their apprentices to help out with this, and it looks great. We should actually get a close up, I think, next time to show it. But the wood looks beautiful. It's a credible job, and it looks like it's going to be there for years to come.
yes, they had used just pine, and we went back with redwood. So it's the longevity of it is going to be much better. It was rotting away when PID had built the. Yeah. Anyways, now it's made out of redwood, and it's going to last much long. Well, hoping no one steals another car and drives into it, but the odds of that are pretty slim. Hopefully. I don't, I know they've been up there. They haven't mentioned it. I know one of their staff did mention, oh, I seen your guys up there working on it. It looked real good. I haven't really invited them up, which now that you mentioned, I probably should. But yeah, no, they do know it got rebuilt. No one's really came down and said anything other than the one staff member that said, oh, it looked really good. I'm glad you got it done. But we were happy, very happy with it. Yeah, I think we could definitely do some natural barriers. Absolutely. Well, the odds, we didn't really think anybody was going to do that, but obviously things happen. Um, but on defensible space, we're working really hard on that. And like I noted here, over the years, as because it's pretty much now it's the same parks and same pieces of property every year. And your first year, you're just learning the property, and as time has went on, what used to take maybe a week to do has gotten down to now where it's like a day or two because we just know what we need to do, and everyone knows the scope of work, and it's not it's not a new assignment. Everyone's got a routine down, so that has gotten better. Because at first, to be honest, when we took upon these, it was kind of overwhelming. But as time has gone on, we've got a very competent crew, and everyone just knows what's got to get done, and it just gets done. And then we've been lucky enough, and thank goodness for all the pieces of equipment that you got us through the grant, has helped out a lot. We couldn't have done it without those pieces of equipment. There's just absolutely no way we would be able to do it. It would all have to be subbed out, which would be astronomical. So it's really nice when we can do these things in-house. Which gets me back now is Upper Billy Park. I don't know if anyone in the board has been to Upper Billy Park in the last couple few weeks or the month. Do you have pictures? Because I'm very proud of it because when I took over, my one goal was to get ADA accessibility from the parking lot to the playground to the bathrooms. And we've done it. And it had started, I made our first pour right before the fire, because it was really bad. And so obviously things happen to fire, and then COVID. And so it kind of really threw things on the backside. And can you go, that there is the entrance, and then there, because we needed access to the bathrooms. And so Dan and I went out there one day and we're looking at, well, what's the best travel? What can we do? And so we came upon that, which worked out perfect. And what's nice about that project, that's 100% done in-house. The only thing that's contracted out was the concrete. So that's nice to be able to do all those in-house. And do you have the one of the in front of the restrooms? This right there, if you look at that picture on top to the right, and then keep going. That's what it looks like now. It is night and day. It has made that whole facility updated, safer, and it's now because that was my goal, was to have a playground that was accessible for for challenge, for those that are physically challenged and whatever their challenge may be, mobility wise, um, was to be able to get to the playground and then get to the restrooms, and it's all within code. It's all ADA compliant. We put up a little fence around it too to keep people from just going from little kids like to run from a playground. They're always running. They have kind of a blinders on. So we put that fence up so they wouldn't just go running off into and off, off that little wall. And what that wall's done is also created a place for parents while the kids are in the restrooms to sit. And it widened it. You can see we widened it about 3 feet, and it has just completely changed it. What I'm hoping now that we have gained that, because in order to get any kind of grants or anything for an inclusive piece of playground, you have to have ADA access to it. So there's steps to get to that point. I'm really hoping down the road that we can get something up there, because there is room to install like a swing. The market for all that ADA and inclusive pieces of playground in the last few years is the market is huge now. They've really opened up instead of the old basic swings and the basic slide, that they've realized there's a whole category of children. And I've always looked at it as like, well, okay, now we can get them to the playground. What are they going to do now? Just stand there and watch the other kids play? That's, to me, I want to change that. And I think that's my goal, is to have it so everyone can enjoy our parks. And that's really is before I retire, that we can have one. To this point though, I'm really happy. I feel like to me, it's like I've left my mark. I really wanted Mark's mark, is I wanted to do something that when I retire, I can say, hey, this is, I did that. And to make that playground accessible in the restrooms, and it turned out incredible. Just everybody jumped on board, everyone, Paul, and we're lucky, and it's all done in-house, from the blocks, the forming, the pouring, the finishing, that's all done by us. Everything, only thing that was ever contracted out, of course, is the concrete. And I would have got that up on the hill, but we don't have that, so I had to. But other than that, it's all done up here, all the materials purchased up here, every bit of it. And the labor force is from up here, and that's pretty cool. And I really,
Sorry, Mark. I just want to kind of reinforce something that, like, these are old facilities, right? And our obligation, if you will, under ADA, these would be grandfathered in and so forth. But I think it's been pretty clear with our population and how our staff feels, is we want to make sure that we have all abilities that can access it. And to me, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense that we had an ADA parking requirement, and yet we did not have an ADA grade to the bathroom, or with that type of exposed aggregate. They don't do it anymore. That's an artifact that is old. And so, when Mark and I walked that route out there, got the right grades. And I think it dresses up the place. I mean, the bathroom is still old, but it looks like a nice facility with the playground and how it's kept up. And so I think it's really nice that we can offer that to the public. And it wasn't something that what we drag to. We are doing this, and we're always looking at kind of improvements from a public access standpoint. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that needs a whole, yeah, that's going to be probably a lot more. Yep. And we did, cleaned up all the landscaping around the playgrounds, restained all the benches. We didn't just do this. We redid that whole area. Everything's been restained, sanded down, repainted, all new bark and all the planters. It really, I'd really highly recommend it's to just pull in there and just kind of walk up there. You'd be like, oh my gosh, especially if you were there before. These pictures at all don't do it justice. Now when you walk in, it's like, oh man, it looks like a modern park. It brought us into, yeah, we're not in the 70s anymore there. And it needed it. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of our staff. I really am. It's a big deal to be able to do that in-house, especially with prevailing wage. That would have been, yeah. Anyways,
Thank you, Mark.
that's mine.
Um, we have actually a pretty good update. I won't go through them here, but with Career Edge Aquatic, I mentioned a little bit about that, the pool resurfacing, Billy Park, and so on, is on the packet. Happy to answer any questions on that, or anything else in the report. So, Mr. Chair.
Any questions on anything else on the district report, board members? Silence, so I guess not. So I think that concludes our discussion on district report. Item 7.2, operational readiness report. Paradise Community Center, information only. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be very brief on this, try to give a little bit of snapshot on where we've come on this, where we're going, but just with the PCC, Paradise Community Center, being added to our portfolio of facilities, just wanted to give a couple of things. One was sort of on the next no, I guess 2 pages. 101 gives a bit of a phasing and, what we thought about a year ago when we were anticipating getting the facility. I think a lot of that still holds up. I want to include it just to show, some of the steps that we're looking at. Page 99 gives some of the information. And I think what's going to be real key for us, especially this first year, is getting a handle on some of the costs. And then some of the opportunities, which we're kicking into July 1st. We're hoping to shortly around then, maybe after that, having a fee schedule that'll be established for it. We right now are utilizing essentially a Terry Ash Rec Center placeholder for internal bookkeeping purposes. So for our rental purposes, for our programs that we're doing with the town of Paradise, we're able to invoice for the use of the facilities. But staff is working on an update to that right now. We're going to review it, bring it to our finance committee meeting here shortly. And I think really scrutinize the math behind it, and then kind of the justification, and then kind of a little bit of comparison with kind of market demand. I won't say demand. We'll look at it kind of like this, the supply side, what the supply is and what the rental rates are locally. So that'll be part of the discussion with finance. Hoping to bring that to the board in the next couple of months here, maybe one of these special meetings actually too, to get that in place for as close to the start of the fiscal year as possible. That's our target date also for getting the facility kind of full rental availability. One thing that's not on here, because it just happened today, is we had a very positive meeting with PPAC. Woody from PPAC met with us and staff. One of the key aspects, I think, for us to work on is he's very receptive to potentially co-hosting some events that could benefit both organizations and maybe even have some fundraisers or that type of thing. But we had some really creative ideas that our staff's going to be working on for maybe some co-sponsored events utilizing our mutual spaces there. Kind of return that to being kind of a focal hub for anything from, all kinds of events that you can imagine there. One of the key aspects that seemed great is our facility has capacity for food and eating inside the facility. PPAC, Paradise Performing Arts Center, does not. And so there's a chance there to have a dinner and a show, or some different concert music events where utilize our facility and then have a main stage basically for PPAC. So really exciting conversation with them. on how we might be able to partner. Those things are further out though for us. In the meantime, we're going to be developing some more programming. We have, what's the high camp now, Christie's at 33 for our exercise class. Up to 33. You want to mention a little bit of something on that?
Yeah, I was just looking at the totals today. So in quarter 1 of 26, we had 76 unique attendees participate in all the different classes that were going on, and 221 in aggregate. And then just so far as of May 13th for quarter 2, we've had 60 unique attendees and 241 total attendees. So already blown away the total attendees number, and we're just getting started. So I'm pretty excited. And
CC, you're talking.
that's correct. Yeah. So we had in quarter 1, we had dance, flow, and arts class for children, and then one for adults. We had mixed level yoga, 2 of those classes. And I think that was, oh, and we had senior drop-in hours that started kind of late February. The senior drop-in hours are becoming pretty popular. There's quite a few folks that show up regularly. The Town of Paradise grant requires that we keep track of how many people come. And so we go through the attendees list and keep, updating the figures every time they participate. And so we're seeing like pretty good patterns of people that are returning, every time it's open. So they're really feeling the love of that facility. And I was over there today actually after the senior fitness class, and there are a couple that were walking out together, and I just asked them, "What did you think of the class? How did it go?" And they said, "We loved it. It was amazing." The woman had a health condition that makes it. She said she has to be very careful about her exercise, but the instructor was very, very knowledgeable, and that they had gone on Monday, and they went back today. They're gonna keep coming, and they both had really high praise for it. And so it just made my heart happy because I thought that's why we're doing this. And so it's an attestation of 2 people. So I didn't interview everybody, but it just made my heart happy. So I thought I'd share.
So what's exciting is we're starting to grow into the programming for the facility, but we're still just scratching the surface as far as, well, not at all scratching the surface as far as rentals go. And then we need to work on some protocols, policies related to the kitchen. So that's a very important component, that it's not someone could get hurt in there and they need to know what they're doing. So
I
we'll
have a
make sure that
question
that's
regarding the
well
kitchen.
done. Yes.
Has environmental health been out there to give it their blessing? The hot lamps are hot enough, the freezer's cold enough, things like that?
Yeah, all of that's been done. I do believe that there's an operational inspection they need to do, but as far as clearing everything, make sure everything's the right temperature, I believe all that's been
Right.
completed. So it's ready to go, other than the operation measurements, inspection. They
Right.
need.
And at this time, the kitchen's just powered down. There's no,
Correct.
Right.
Other than we're using it for light refreshments,
But
basically.
you're not running the freezer.
Not, I don't know what, I think it might be running anyway, but just so it doesn't get weird in there.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think everything else is pretty much, it's locked up. We're not operating any of the heavies in there.
Right.
So
But
yeah,
just an aside, it's quite expensive to keep air frozen as opposed to something solid. So if you've got excess bags of ice somewhere,
sure.
put them in there.
Yeah. Or water. Yeah. That's good point. Yeah. Thank you. I was going to mention one other thing about that. Oh, and a big part of it too for us is we have, it's not fully furnished. So, we have some things that we added programmatically that we need. So if you need a little bit of a workout, a little dumbbell set for dumbbells on there. And I mean, exercise uses dumbbells. I'm not calling anybody a dumbbell. But the idea is that that's used for our class. Sorry, bad joke. But the idea is that we're adding stuff in there. We have the A on AV, but we don't have the V. So we have audio over there, but we don't have all the some of the tech that we will need to operate a full event there. So anyway, more to come over the next few months. Be happy to talk about this individually, But I want to give a little update and some hard information about where we're at now. So thank you, Mr. Chair and directors.
Does that conclude our discussion on item 7.2? Okay, with concurrence of the board, if it's okay with staff, can we take maybe a 5-minute break before we come back and then convene and then announce a closed session item? Got concurrence on that? 5-minute break,
Concur.
please. Okay, we have now, the district board has reconvened. We're in open session and we're about to announce going into closed session. Closed session is item 8.1 concerning existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, item D1. I may mispronounce this name, but Casa Yulong versus Paradise Recreation and Park District, case number 224 CV 02786 CSK. We're now in closed session, so. Okay, we have now reconvened from closed session. We're now back in open session. And as chair, I have to announce that the board gave direction to the general manager on this matter um, by motion and second and vote.
Yes.
So that puts us now on the next agenda item, which is board comments. We'll try to make this short tonight, everyone. We'll start with you, Director Stonebreaker. You have any general comments to share for?
I had a very busy month, and I will not go over everything. I did attempt to attend the horse festival on Sunday the 26th, but sadly it was rained out. And then I had the opportunity to go to the Cinco de Mayo Gymkhana on May 9th, when the arena was in much better shape and the horses were able to make their tight turns with no difficulty. It was a good experience to have everyone out. And then I came down here to the Chocolate Fest, which was still booming at 3 o'clock, had conversations with several constituents, and enjoyed the broader community getting together for a good time. I appreciate our facility at Moore Road and our facility here being put to that good use for the community. Also want to say that I did have the opportunity to attend the University of California Cooperative Extension Tree School on April 18th over at the Paradise High School. It was a mix of industry professionals and forest landowners like myself and interested members of the general public. It's difficult to create a lesson plan for that sort of class, and a lot of the beneficial learning experiences were between members of the class interacting rather than from the instructors themselves. It's quite a many things that I have had to undertake. I did have the opportunity to go to the Butte County Collaborative Group in person on the 27th. That was my first time there in person rather than online. The group was able to come to a consensus on how to submit a joint application for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy landscape grant, that rather than having a number of Butte County entities competing against one another for these funds, to come together and say that these are the projects that are a priority to the broader community, and then seek funding from Sierra Nevada Conservancy jointly. And then that evening, I went to the Forest Advisory Committee in person. It's the first time they met properly since last July. And again, I normally Zoom into that meeting, but it was good to be there in person to be able to talk to the consultant who's working on the roadside fuel reduction plan and the foothill connectivity action plan. And there'll be a meeting at McGilly Community Center on the 21st from 5:30 to 7:30, where members of the community can give their input to the consultant and to county staff about the need for better communications to all areas of the county, and also for what would be priorities for roadside fuel modifications, especially along evacuation routes throughout the county. So of the many meetings I attended, those are the ones that are of a high priority. I do also want to mention that I zoomed into the Paradise Irrigation meeting where Director Kevin Phillips was able to give some very encouraging news to his board about the prospect of FEMA brick funding for the Magalia Dam. I may have mentioned that here previously, but when Mark Wayne Mullen was confirmed, he chose not to contest the court ruling that said that, this money was owed to the states, and the process is still being worked out, but Cal OES says that they're not going to accept applications for anybody who wasn't already approved. So the certain pool of dollars is sort of reserved for those who've already received received awards that were then clawed back. So it is very likely that those federal dollars will still arrive in our area to improve Magalia Dam, both in terms of its seismic resistance and in terms of the widening of the crest to accommodate a 4-lane road in the future. Thank you for listening.
Okay, Director Levy?
No comment.
Okay, Director Roderick?
Unfortunately, I was not able to attend all the community activities that have been transpired the past month. The Gold Nugget Fair, the Gymkhana, Chocolate Fest, even the track meet, which I wanted to volunteer at. I've been out of state traveling with my wife and was couldn't be there. Timing just wasn't it. However, I do want to report that our fellow fire survivors in the town of Lahaina are doing very well. They have a long way to go, but they are making excellent progress. And I just, with all the challenges they have, even greater than Paradise has, being their isolation, they're doing very well. And that's mine.
Thank you, Mr. Roderick. Director Anderson?
I took the Cook Stove hike up in Concal. Pretty good hike, a couple of miles. And there's a little mine that has a shaft that goes back a few feet and an old cook stove. But a bunch of locals cleared that trail that had been there years and years ago, and they, in the past couple of years, have cleared it. So it's a good little hike if you want a little hike. I also rode up with and did some tours of Rim Road, where with the Forest Service and the Fire Council and a bunch of the Maidu tribe, and we looked at the clearing that they had been doing up there. It looked great. Looked very fire resistant, and they're still working, doing stuff like that up there. We saw a couple of spots that they had done. I think that's it.
Thank you, Director Anderson. I'll be brief. Since the last board meeting, I think you all know this, but our Finance Committee has met on 2 occasions, on April the 16th and also, well, actually 1 occasion, I should say, and as well as our Rec and Park Committee on April the 21st. I participated in a special Zoom meeting with my California Association Recreation Park District Board members on April 29th. And the purpose of that Zoom meeting was to do the annual evaluation of our services that we receive from Capri as it relates to the staffing services. And we gave an excellent evaluation for Mr. Matthew Doherty and his staff, and that'll be shared subsequently with the entire board on an upcoming meeting of the board that will take place on May the 20th. On May the 5th, in my capacity as Chief Financial Officer for CARPID, we had a Finance Committee meeting where we went over, with help of staff, coming up with a preliminary budget for CARPD for the coming fiscal year. And that will also be agendized for that board meeting on the 20th of May, and hopefully that'll be adopted. That's pretty much it. At the end of this month, I'll be attending and participating with the annual CARPD conference. We'll be in Monterey from May the 27th through the 29th, I believe. And I believe Director Roderick is also attending with his wife, and our district manager and our district clerk will also be in attendance at the conference this year. That's pretty much it. So we're at the point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just had a couple of follow-up, or statement and question. I wanted to let people know that the Paradise Community Center nonprofits are going to be recognized. And we have 3 members, and their spouses that are going to attend. They're going to go. So we did. So, yeah. So we're thrilled that we, looks like we're going to get they're going to get the award, based on our nomination, and, a majority of their board is going to be able to attend. So I just thought I'd share that. And I also had a question for Director Stonebreaker on the tree school. We've had a little bit of conversation about potentially providing something similar, but it may be a kind of a work series on covering some of the topics, but having it over a series of months, as sort of almost like an hour seminar or something. I'm just kind of curious based on your experience, if that would be, you think useful, that we should look into that, or what your thoughts are.
As a district-led program?
We would just be a co-sponsor on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what I would say is that I would like to have the opportunity to bring the sort of the experience of tree school to more people in our district, that a lot of the attendees were coming from outside Butte County, which was useful that I got to interact directly with people who were reforesting on the Mendo National Forest and on the, I'm sorry, I believe it's Eldo National Forest and the Caldor Scar. But a lot of the people who might have been interested in Butte County didn't sign up in time and couldn't get into the classes that they were interested in. So I think that it would be good to have that sort of information presented here to our residents. So I'd be happy to talk to you and possibly the co-sponsor more. But off the top of my head, I think that it would be a good opportunity for our residents.
Thank you.
Who would be the co-sponsor?
Probably essentially the same content speakers,
Mhm.
maybe guest, sort of a series that would be, educational series. So a lot of details to come, but
Okay.
just kind of pages of it.
Okay, I think that pretty much concludes all our comments under the board and staff. So at this point in time, we're going to declare the board meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.